Welcome to another Thursday installment of MSP Webinars. I'm Steve Taylor, the host of MSP Webinars. Today we are joined by Doug and Anton from CloudBerry. And if you've never heard of CloudBerry, it's a pretty neat backup solution. And they kind of take a different approach. And instead of selling you a backup software and say, here's our cloud, here's how much it costs to use it, they sell you backup software that's almost like cloud agnostic. It works with Azure, AWS, Backblaze B2, and I feel like there's like over a dozen places it'll work. Now I think it might do like FTP and WebDAV and that kind of stuff too. But Doug and Anton can clarify and all that stuff. So I say we just kind of dive right in. For the people attending, there is a Q&A section. You should see that. I never remember if it's here or here, but it'll say Q&A for you guys. Just go there for questions if there are questions I need to ask. Otherwise, you can use the chat to just have conversation. That's fine. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm not able to watch the YouTube comments while we're live. I'm very sorry, but I have a feeling we're gonna ask some good questions. So without further ado, I'm gonna pass it over to Doug. If you could kind of give us some background, Doug, with your role at CloudBerry and maybe some background on CloudBerry as well. That'd be great.
Sure, not a problem. So I'm Doug Hazelman. My official title is VP of Technical Marketing. Sorry about the M word, but I like the technical part more than the marketing part. But I'm at CloudBerry, and if you don't know about CloudBerry, Steve, you did a great introduction in terms of kind of what we do. But CloudBerry actually got started several years ago, and there's a number of different utilities. So you may have heard of CloudBerry Explorer, which allows you to collect your cloud storage like S3 and explore it just like you're in or just like you're in File Explorer. There's CloudBerry Drive, which maps a drive to your cloud storage. A couple different utilities like that. But kind of what we've morphed into is providing backup. And there's two ways to look at it from the CloudBerry perspective. There's CloudBerry Backup, and then there's Managed Backup. CloudBerry Backup is really it's a standalone solution. You install it on a PC or Windows or Mac or Linux, and you just manage it all from that one-off type of solution. Managed Backup is where we have a SaaS application that runs in the cloud. You connect to it, and then you manage a number of different endpoints, whether they be client computers, Windows servers. We support Mac, we support Linux, and it's multi-tenant, so you can manage multiple customers. So from an MSP standpoint, it really makes sense to say, hey, I want to provide backup to my customers, and here's a great way to do it. Everything is managed through a web browser. You just go in, you get things configured, you get the clients installed on their computers, and then they start sending the data to where you specify. And like you mentioned, CloudBerry, we are very cloud agnostic. Most of our customers do use Amazon S3, just because it's kind of one of the first and most well known. But we also have a number of customers that use Azure, Google Cloud Storage. Backblaze B2 has become tremendously popular, mostly because of they're very aggressive on pricing. They're S3 compatible and those types of things. But if you look in the list, you'll see that there's a whole host of different cloud options. With S3 compatible, meaning we can support almost any cloud that supports F3 or S3. If you want to set up your own storage in your own data center, you can do it on OpenStack Swift. Then you can use that. So it's very flexible in terms of what type of storage you want to use. You can even use local storage, whether it's USB drive or a NAS or something like that. So we're not trying to lock people into a particular cloud, because at the end of the day, it's your customer's data, and you and they should be able to move it to wherever they want. And that's kind of what we believe in, and not locking you into that particular platform. So that's kind of a rough general overview of CloudBerry. Anton, I don't know if you want to add anything to that or not. You've been here a little bit longer than I have.
Oh, well, you covered pretty much everything. I'm currently trying to get started with answering questions that appear in the list.
Okay.
Feel free to ask any questions. While Doug will be running the demo.
Yeah, and Anton, I was actually talking to Steve a little bit earlier. Steve he'll pepper us with questions from the Q&A as part of the webinar, so that way, everybody can hear the question, which I think is a good approach to do that.
Okay.
Feel free to answer some if they seem like they've been asked before or whatever, but I'll definitely try and go through these. Like I see someone asked if you guys support Wasabi.
Wasabi, yes.
Wasabi storage.
I like Wasabi a lot better. And it looks like you guys have started supporting that in the last few months.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
cool. Yeah. So basically what we wanted to do today was talk about hey, if you're interested, how do you kind of get started? How do you get up and running? Because there's kind of a lot of different options. So figured just kind of we'll run through Managed Backup, and as we go through, if there's questions, feel free to ask. And the idea is to give you a nice general overview of how things work, and we'll go from there. Does that sound good?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, let me figure out screen share.
and I'd love to see
there we go.
Like, what might your recommended approach be for different scenarios, whether it's a desktop or maybe a laptop that's never in the office, or
Mm-hmm.
a server, all sorts of different scenarios, just so that way people can see the power behind the tool.
Yeah, definitely. And Anton, he's one of our solution architects. So he works with our managed service providers every day to help them get up and running and started. So, he's got a wealth of information in his head that hopefully we can pry out of there as we go through.
Perfect. Go for it.
Great. So this is, one thing you'll notice is mspbackups.com. That's our domain. You just go there, you log in, and you're presented with your managed backup, home screen with some summary information. Everything here is up to date. You get licensing information, information to download the clients that you've registered for, but just kind of that general overview type screen. Now, as you go through and kind of start the setup and the process, the first thing you want to do is you want to add some storage accounts. The storage accounts are the cloud storage, and we talked about that briefly about all the different ones that we do support. Unfortunately, let me move that over there. There we go. So if I click on Add Account, what we've done, and this is a recent change within the last month, is we kind of group things together. So our popular options, as we mentioned, S3 Azure, Backblaze, file system. So that you can write to an internal drive or to a NAS, Google Cloud, Google Drive, OpenStack. So those are the most popular. You click that, you get more. You give it even more options. You got CenturyLink and some other things. You got Wasabi there, Oracle Cloud, and show even more. And it goes down and shows even more options that we have to connect. So basically, you click on any one of those, and it will walk you through the setup process to add that storage account to the interface. So you give it a display name, and you have to go into S3. Pardon? Oh. You do have to go into Amazon, obviously, and set everything up on the S3 side. We have some really good guides in terms of how to set up the IAM roles so that you can do that. But that's kind of I'm not going to delve into that. If you've haven't worked with S3, we do have some very nice options for that. And then once you've got your storage added, you can actually set storage limits. So that you don't put too much in your bucket, so to speak, and that way you can help control the cost if you're concerned about people uploading too much or using too much of your storage. So once you've connected storage, then it's really you just go into you can go into users, What I like to start off with from a best practice is, especially if you're an MSP and you're going to be working with multiple companies, is first go in and set up your companies. So you can go in. It's really just kind of a grouping mechanism, but this does kind of add that multi-tenancy layer to it. So I can just go in and create a new company. I can use storage limits here if I want, so I can limit the amount of storage for the entire company so that they don't use too much. But again, you don't have to do that. And then save the company. It's that simple. Now you can go in and create your users. And as you create the users, then you assign them to a company. So you give them a first name, last name, user account. It's typically an email address. We give you the password. You choose the company you want, the bucket. So pretty straightforward, kind of getting started. And then once you've got your users and companies set up, then it's very easy to then go in and get the client software installed. But one of the interesting things that we do as part of this, because from an MSP perspective, we want it to we want you to be able to make it look like it's yours and not necessarily CloudBerry's. So on that front, what we do is we have a number of rebranding options that allow you to kind of go in and set up your own brand. You can use your own pictures. So this is just some fun that I have, my little bitmap on how computers are made. And you can go in and, again, the rebranding options are there's a lot of different things that you can do. So you can change the images everywhere. You can put your logo on it. You put your name on it. You can use your own URL as well. So you can change the icons so the icons look different. What we want to be able to do is allow the MSPs to, if they want, to be able to completely rebrand it to make it look like it's their backup. Now, obviously, it's CloudBerry in the background, but from a customer perspective, if they see something, especially like an icon or a name, if they see CloudBerry, they're gonna be like, "What the heck is this?" But if they see your name as the MSP, they'll say, "Oh, I need to contact my MSP if I'm having an issue or I'm concerned about whatever this thing is that keeps popping up." So it definitely helps from a support perspective, if nothing else. And then, once you have all of that set up, you update the resources. It updates everywhere. One of the things then too is if you go to downloads, once you've set that, it'll take all of that information that you input and you click generate setup package. And what that will do is it'll take your pictures and your icons and everything, and it will create a custom build of CloudBerry Backup just for you. You generate it, it goes into a sandbox area, you can download it, test it, verify it. If it's okay, then you move it from sandbox to production, and then it's available for your customers to download. And when you set up those customers, as we were talking about before, with their email address, they'll actually get an email with a link to the build that you created for them to download and install on their computer. Also, if as CloudBerry has updates, we will update the binaries. We'll notify you that, hey, you've got computers that are running an old build, or everyone's running an old build. You can go in, generate this custom setup again, test it, verify it, and then click OK. And if you have automatic updates allowed, next time the backup runs, the clients will pull down the new version, and they'll be updated and running on the new version.
All right, we've got some questions.
Sure.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So I'm going to start. I see someone has a logistics question. Do most MSPs use a generic account across all of a client, e.g. client at mymsp.com, or assigned accounts for each user the backup will be installed on at each individual client?
That's an excellent question.
Yeah.
And it can go either way. But Anton, what do you normally recommend from from your perspective?
Just just a second. We have more and more questions, so.
Oh yeah, I'm going to go through a few.
Well, basically, Anton, I think what they're asking is when you set up a company and then you create the users, do you create a user for every endpoint that you want to protect, or do you create maybe one user for the company and then just install it based on that account?
My thought is you would do each person gets their own account, so that way if they need to log in and recover a file, they can, right?
Well, currently we do recommend to create a separate account for every user, which we try to be which should be a representation of a physical person, and one user can back up multiple computers. For example, one at home, one at the office, and one wife's computer also. And yeah, so using this one account, you will cover multiple computers, and the data of this particular user will not mix up to the data with any other users. So there was another question, by the way, how do we put data to the cloud and not to mix it up? So how it works, we have a separate folder for every single user on the cloud storage, and as long as you performing backups using that particular user, data will go to the particular folder on the cloud storage, and inside that folder we we create a structure which represent the structure on the computer. On the disk, and computer name also comes into play. So the data is basically layered. There are several layers how we put data separately, and and it never mixes up.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is, by using the IAM roles, like within S3 or the permissions, the client, people, they don't have an individual login to the cloud storage, so to speak. That it's all done through APIs. And I think the other important aspect too is the data does not go through, like we're showing managed backup here. The backup data does not go through this application. You set it up through this application. It tells the clients how to connect to the cloud storage, and when the backup runs, the client connects directly to the cloud storage to back up without, so the data never actually goes through the CloudBerry server.
So backup console just transfers a destination and a token to the backup agent, and backup agent talks to the cloud storage directly, and only reports us with a certain amount, number of bytes backed up, and keeping us posted, and the console can show you how much data you uploaded.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and there was another question. Just give me a sec. I'm gonna find this.
Someone asked me if I actually allow my users to perform a restore themselves. Not every user, but there are some users that have been very persistent about wanting to be able to access their backups, and I let them access their backups.
Yeah, and that's individual choice.
They absolutely don't know how, and they ask me for help in the day, but they feel empowered, and that's the important thing.
Yeah.
We have a couple of different ways how to restore the data. For more advanced people can use the backup agent itself. If you have the UI, which can be disabled, for example, and manage everything from the management portal. If you not disable it, advanced users can use the UI in order to restore, and less advanced users, they can go to the web portal, and they can restore some individual files from the portal. So it's not the management portal; it's one additional portal. Yeah. So the first option here is to disable the UI, which Doug is currently showing, and in fact, it's you will have the backup service on the machine, and everything else you would like to perform, you can do remotely, and this is something we're also working on a regular basis. We add more and more features, and on a certain day we will add more features to the web portal compared with our backup agents.
Yeah, and just real quick too, I wanted to show. So once you set up that user and they get the link and the login, they then download, or you can do it for them, hopefully. that agent itself, it runs, sets up and runs as a service in the background. I have the UI enabled so I can actually see it here on my computer. If it decides it's going to open up, maybe I didn't double click on it. There we go.
Yeah.
So there's my custom build image. And so this is the UI of what gets installed on the client computers. And as Anton mentioned, this can be disabled, so they can't even launch this. You can hide it from the system tray, hide it from everything, so they won't even see or know that it's there. I guess I did launch it twice. But so you can do restores from here. If the customer can do a restore from here if you enable this option, or they can do it from a web portal if you give them that option as well. But they'll probably have to call you first to ask they'll need to know what their username and login password is, because they won't remember. So you'll still have to get involved.
Okay, so let me just go through and recap all these. Security and isolation. If I create a bucket on a service, when I put multiple clients in that bucket, is there security to isolate them?
Yes.
Okay.
So when we send a token to the backup agents when they need to backup or to restore, so this token has a path on a bucket which the backup agent can talk to. So it cannot take any other folders on a higher level. It can talk to folders on a lower level to put some data there, or just to retrieve data from there. But it can't go to another path which is not defined in the token.
So we don't have to have a bucket for each customer.
Correct.
Well, some customers claim that they have to do it because of some laws, some local laws. But I don't remember what was the country.
Well, the other thing is some customers might already have S3 storage, that they want to use, and basically then all you have to do is connect it to their S3 storage, but you obviously they have to give you the user, they have to give you the role and the keys and everything to do that, but then they may already have the S3 storage they're paying for. It's probably not very common. It's more common that the MSP will say, look, I'm backing it up to the cloud, don't worry where it's going, it's safe, and then the MSP can use whatever they want.
And then did we talk about encryption? Are you encrypting the data during transmit?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we have several layers of encryptions. I can talk a lot on every single question we have here.
Well, let's just talk a little.
Sure.
Just mile high overview. What is encrypted, where, and when?
Well, we have transport encryption, which is TLS. We have client-side encryption, which is AES from 128 to 256, depending on your choice. I'm gonna show it in a second.
It's encrypted at the endpoint before it even transmits.
Yeah, before it's been transferred. So when you transfer, you can have on top two layers of security. So to encryption on top of the encryption, and when the data arrives to the cloud storage, if Amazon, for example, or some other players, they do support server-side encryption. So you can have client-side encryption and server-side encryption on top of that.
That's a lot of encryption.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
hey, I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's never enough.
Yeah, and it was funny. Earlier today, I was playing around doing a restore, and I'm like, it failed because I didn't put in the proper encryption password. And I'm like, oh crap, what password did I use to encrypt these backups? And so I finally figured it out, but it was kind of funny.
It was password with a capital P.
Yeah, but if there is no password, you can't restore your data.
Exactly. So it's very important. So if you click this here, and you put a password in there, make sure you don't forget what that is, because if you do and you can't restore your customer's data, then that's going to be a bad thing. So
that right there is great information to put into. I'm just going to name two: IT Boost or IT Glue. All right. Make yourself a custom, I can't think of what they call the custom section for each client. Call it CloudBerry encryption keys.
Yep.
Pop it in every customer, man, and then you'll never be sad again. Let's see here. Oh man, this is a confusing question that I feel like a lawyer should answer. So if you can't answer it, I understand.
Which one?
If the backups from different clients share the same physical or virtual server, and this could also include the bucket, okay, if they're all in the same bucket.
Okay.
What happens if a client is indicted and their server is confiscated by law? Does that mean all of my clients' backups go with it too?
I think it's a question to, I don't know, your cloud storage provider.
Yeah, I mean, I would, you know, I don't know the answer.
I don't know the answer as well.
Yeah, Errol always asks the most interesting questions. So,
in that case, I would recommend having a separate bucket for every customer.
Yeah, if you're worried about legal issues, maybe you don't need that client.
Well, I mean, a lot of people work in the legal industry, right? You know, from an MSP perspective, you know, there's a lot of small lawyers' offices that need IT. But then there's also, you know, there's also highly regulated industries that people get into as well. So it's good to know the options and you know, kind of what happens. But from a software perspective, you know, what we're doing is providing the software when it comes to setup and multi-tenancy and how things get set up from the provider standpoint and legal holds. You know, that's something that you need to work through with each client, I think, to understand the ramifications of that.
Okay. Are you able to hide certain settings in the software while still letting them access the software, or is it all or nothing?
So there are some things. So, you know, again, if you enable the client console, then you can then go around, you can go through and like, you don't want to show file name encryption in the console, you can turn that off. You can turn off encryption in the console. You can show compression or just use it by disable it and use it by default. You can allow them to enable and edit backup plans. So yeah, there are some granular options down here in terms of what they can do within the client if you do enable it. So it's not an all or nothing kind of thing. And if there's more granular options that you'd like to see, you know, that's great feedback. We'd love to know, you know, what would be good to turn on or off.
And so let's say I want to make changes to that endpoint the way it's backing up. Is that something that I can do through the website? Is it something that I would have to do from the endpoint? And when I do it from the endpoint, am I able to just like punch in a little password so I can access the full system without all the things I hid from the end user? Or do I have to go and check all those boxes and let them see it so I can make changes?
Well, the easy part I'm going to say is you can do all of it through the web console.
So I can remotely manage the entire software from top to bottom.
Once it's installed, yes. And with our 4.1 release, you can actually go and you can create backup plans within the web console and then push those down to the client computers as well.
Yeah. So the latest version of the console, there is a link remote deploy next to the remote management. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a couple of different ways to do it. So let's say you want to, you know, you've got a backup plan here. You can do edit, and it will bring up, you know, a number of all the different options that you see within the interface on the client. So you can change everything here within the web interface. You save it. That new configuration then gets pushed down to the computer. So that's kind of a one-off if you just want to change it for one computer. If you're dealing with a company and you want all of them to be essentially the same, then what you can do within our remote deploy, RMM remote deploy, is you go in and you can create configurations for each customer, and then each pardon?
Create. Upload is
Oh yeah,
no
sorry, create.
approach.
Yeah, my mouth was saying one thing. My mouth was saying one thing. My mouse was pointing to another.
Right.
So I can create this configuration, and there's just a couple. There's some kind of global settings. Again, this is show it in the system tray, bandwidth, connection. So this is kind of a global setting for this configuration. But then when it comes to a backup plan, you can then add a backup plan, either file or image. I think all I have is license for is file on this one. But then again, all the options that you see within the interface, you can then create the backup plan. You got the source, you've got the targets, all these different things. And once that plan is saved, oops, I should have saved it, but I didn't. Then it can be deployed out to the different computers.
Yeah, so you define the rules according to which this configuration and the backup plan or restore plan will be deployed to some machines. So
correct. So if I go in here to rules, so I can create a rule for a company,
user, or computer, or even a wildcard.
Yeah. So I've got my configuration. It's MSP Webinars. The company is MSP Webinar. That's what I want it to. Another option we added in 4.1 is to say only apply to new installations. So if you've already got everything set up and running out there, but you've got new computers, new clients coming in, you can say only push this down to the new computers, and it'll do that.
Nice.
You can do it to a company. You can do it to an individual. I don't have any users in that, or to an individual computer. But if you do it to the company and you save it, then anytime a client from that company's account, comes online, the user logs in, or gets logged in, then this configuration gets pushed down to that client. So it's a way to remotely deploy everything that we just showed you that was in the client interface.
Now let's talk about. I'm just going to ask this one more encryption question, because you can never have too many encryption questions. Excuse me. Very sorry. So the password for encryption that you configured in the software, that the private key, or does it generate a salted key?
Salted key.
Okay.
So it's not a private key and public key. It's symmetrical encryption, and we have a document describing how is it salted and the whole approach, how we encrypt and decrypt. So we have like a security consideration document describing all this. Well, we can share later on if someone's interested.
Okay, perfect. Let's talk about automation, because MSPs love automation.
Yeah.
So I imagine that we can deploy this software through an RMM.
You sure can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so that's kind of one of the other things, because I talked a lot about the client component that gets installed on the endpoints, whether it be a server or workstation, that has to get installed somehow. And there's multiple ways you can do it. You could have the user, like I said, when the user gets an email, they get a link, they click it, it downloads, it asks them to log in with the username and password you created for them. That's one way. But you may not want your users to do that. Other ways to manually install it yourself at each one, which can be tedious. You can use GPO, PSExec, or you can use, if you have RMM software, then you can use that to push the client out as well.
So I see you've got settings right there for ConnectWise, AutoTask, and LabTech. So let me just talk about my perfect world, and you can tell me how wrong I am. Okay.
Okay.
My perfect world is everyone's using ConnectWise and LabTech. Am I right, Andy and Johnny Walker? Eh? So we've got quite a few LabTech fans in here, and that's great. Kaseya. So everyone's using ConnectWise and LabTech, right? So you've got your customer in ConnectWise. You've got all of the contacts, all of the employees that are computer users in ConnectWise.
Mhm.
Somehow, magically, you can deploy the software through LabTech and, I don't know, use an API or something to create an account for whatever users you want it to create an account for.
Okay. So currently we can only deploy backup agents using LabTech. LabTech is a really new plugin we recently developed, and we are still working on it. So if we have any real customers who can provide us with the relevant feedback, that would be really awesome. Some automation that you can also do if you have any services that you run. You can integrate with our, we have two different ways of automating stuff. The server things and everything that's related to the console can be performed using our API, which is pretty powerful. And every task you need to perform on the backup agent, it could be performed using command line interface. So you can create users, you can add destinations, add storage accounts using API. You can provision licenses even using API. Speaking of command line interface, you can once you deploy the package, and there are many ways how to deploy it. You can using CLI, you can authenticate the agent. You can add backup plans, or this all can be performed in both ways, API or CLI, depending on how is better for your environment. It's better to integrate. So LabTech, yeah. So in LabTech we can just deploy the backup agents. We don't currently we didn't develop in current LabTech integration adding users, just because users is something we always had, but we also realized that new customers that they switch from different other products, they come to us and they say, well, we don't use users. We have devices and we have licenses. We just want to attach licenses to devices and group them by companies. That's it. We don't need any user entities. And this is basically why we have, Doug, can you please head over to users? Just a sec.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so here in the list of users, you have green icons and the black icon. The black one is basically the same email that you have for your provider. We call it root account. And using this root account, it's been already created as soon as you sign up. So currently it's the default user. You can perform all the backups using this account. And in fact, you don't really need to create any additional users if you don't need it to. But adding those adds you more flexibility and more control and more visibility across your customers. It simplifies things. It makes it more transparent, if you will. So automation we can use this the black icon, this root account, doug.h@cloudberrylab.com, and we can use we can deploy all the agents and authenticate using this user account and its password. Well, the other way of integration I would like to mention that we do have is AD integration. So if you have Active Directory in your company, and not all MSPs have such, and you can install a piece of software. It's in downloads, yeah. So it's called AD Bridge. So AD Bridge authenticates. It should not be generated because it's generic build. So you authenticate using your root account, and also there is there are two fields for domain user and its password. So as soon as you authenticate user, you authenticate the user, which can check AD for users which are logged on the computers. It will check if they are a member of a certain group, and if they are, it will create users in our system, and they will look not like an email, but like a domain / and user count. Yeah, there is some sort of an automation, and we have customers, larger customers, who have to manage and deploy thousands of agents. They use AD Bridge, and they split it by companies. So they also use companies, they use users, and they use AD Bridge. It saves a lot of time managing the not to perform this manually. And we get some positive feedback on that.
Automation is what we all need, right?
That's right.
So hopefully, Andy, did that answer your question sufficiently, or do you need more detail on any of that? I'm sure those of us that are not on lab tech, whether it's Kaseya, AEM, SolarWinds, we're going to have questions as far as how can we deploy it, even if we just do it using a script we write. Those guys are going to have questions as to how it can be done. I think the simple, yes or no, can it be done using scripting?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, that's the most important part. Someone asked a question, and I think I can answer this one. Do we need licenses for each of our customers? My assumption is you need a license for every device you're backing up.
Correct.
That's correct. There is one exclusion, or like one exception. If you have VM edition, you can probably show it here. Yeah. So there is a virtual machine edition. So it backs up the host and all the guests on it.
Nice.
So in this case, virtual devices will be covered with just one license.
And okay, so I see virtual machine and virtual machine socket.
Yeah. So our licensing model is one VM edition, which is not socket license. Covers two sockets, two CPU sockets.
Gotcha. So if they have two physical CPUs,
that's correct.
But if they have 6 physical CPUs, and it doesn't matter if 2 CPUs or 24 total cores, you're just looking at sockets.
Yeah. Physical sockets, yes.
Yeah, so you'd need one. So that would be 2, and you said 8 or 6.
4. Well, if it's 6, then no. If it's 6, then we need to one VM edition and 4 sockets.
Okay, so it's not
4 sockets. My math is bad today. There we go.
So if you have 3 sockets, you're getting a good deal.
Yeah. If you have 3 sockets, you have to just purchase one VM edition and one VM socket license.
Mm-hmm.
And I see network. You've got 5 shares and 20 shares. Is that going to back up the shares off of a different server then?
Yeah. So we can take network shares as a source and as a destination. This is about source. So we can take shares, different shares, file shares from one machine and back it up to S3.
Okay. And I see you guys will do Google Apps, or what they now call G Suite,
Yeah,
or Microsoft Office 365. That 20 a year, is that for the entire tenancy, or is that per mailbox?
Per user, per mailbox. Yeah, it's not only mailbox, it's also SharePoint in case of Office 365, calendar, contacts, everything, pretty much everything. And to be quite precise, Doug, can you please put, for example, 100 on Office 365? We have really great volume discounts, and just click somewhere else. Yeah. Yep. So the cost drops down more than 50%.
Yeah. So, and And I know, Steve, you were going to ask about pricing, so I thought I'd be up front and just show the screen, right?
Yeah.
This it lays it all out, and the price is, essentially the price for one license, and then as you change the quantity, you'll see the discounted price. So 100 brought us down to $8 a year, so it's only 800 instead of 2,000. So that's a significant discount in terms of, and all the prices, they essentially have those volume discounts. Where they kick in is a little bit harder to figure out, but you can play around with the numbers and it'll automatically calculate it as you do that.
So I'll share, since we're talking about pricing, I'm going to share that you guys have provided MSP Webinars members with a special deal, and we can talk about the deal. And if you guys want to take part in the deal, all you got to do is hop on the MSP Webinars website or just reach out to me and I'll get you taken care of. The deal, we get three things that I really think are fantastic. Monthly payment options. So instead of paying the $149 up front, it's whatever that is divided by 12, right? There's no extra fees.
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry.
We get free branding, which normally you guys charge over $100 for that, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And is that like one brand, or could I have a brand for each client?
Currently, it's just one brand.
It's the brand for the MSP. So when you think about custom branding, it's your MSP custom branding yourself to all of your clients. But you can't change brands for different clients unless you sign up separately.
And then here's a nice little piece for you guys. $500 in store credit that you can use within the first year of being a CloudBerry partner. Mm-hmm. And there's no like you have to buy something in order to get the 500.
Nope.
Here's $500 and get yourself some licenses. It expires after 12 months. These licenses expire after 12 months. So if you spend all 500 tomorrow, a year from tomorrow, you're gonna have to buy all those licenses again. However, it's a pretty fantastic deal, I think. And I really appreciate you guys for doing that for us.
Yeah, so I was just playing around. So Ultimate, which is kind of our top tier, right? Mm-hmm. You can get 3 licenses of Ultimate, and that would run for $449.97. So that would keep you under that $500 threshold. And if you go in here and you kind of compare editions in terms of what everything, Ultimate basically covers everything except virtual machines.
Gotcha.
And its list price is $149.99 a year. So, but it covers Windows 7, Windows Server, Image, SQL, Exchange, as well as Restore to EC2 and Azure VM.
I didn't even realize you use the same version, whether it's a desktop or a server. It's just, do you want image backup or just file backup?
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, because you may not want to image all of your desktop computers, so we give you that option for file backup. It actually saves a lot of space in the cloud because file backup, you can just back up specific directories. You don't have to back up the entire image. So it uses less space in the cloud, and it's actually much quicker. Especially on the first backup, just to do file-based for your desktops and laptops.
That's awesome, man. That'll get people depending on, they could get up to 10 licenses. And maybe more. I don't know where your discount starts, but that's pretty awesome. Let me look back at the Q&A because I know we still have. Can CloudBerry be used on air-gapped networks? So does it need to be does the data need to be backed up to somewhere that like AWS, or can it be backed up locally?
It can be backed up locally. So in that case, if it's completely air gapped, then the managed backup probably wouldn't work. But you can install our standalone CloudBerry backup on those servers and back them up to a USB drive or to another disk. It does not have to go to the cloud. And one of the other options.
They still need to get the correct license though, right?
Correct. They need to get the correct license, but in that case, it probably wouldn't be managed backup if it's completely air gapped. If it's not connected to the internet, then there's no way that our managed backups are going to be able to communicate with it. So it would kind of fall outside of that. But you can license standalone CloudBerry backup for those couple of computers that work that way.
But then it won't have with the branding. Darn it, guys.
Well,
there is always but in such cases when you don't have internet connection.
Yeah.
If that's the worst that happens on an air gap network, I think we're okay, right? Do you have a Microsoft Intune API?
No.
Did I hear a chuckle from one of you?
Sorry. Was that out loud?
It took me some time to remember what is it used for.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder what it's used for too. It's okay. William Metzler asked if you can back up to multiple destinations, and I know that answer is yes.
Yes, and I was just going to mention, because we're talking about local backup, we also have, on our Windows side, we have what we call hybrid. And what hybrid backup does is it writes to both local or, storage you specify, as well as to the cloud. So instead of having to do two backups, one for local, one for the cloud, you can do one backup with two destinations.
Yeah, so one job, and you move data to a local destination, and then to another local, or to the cloud.
Now, what about those servers that have 3 terabytes of data? We just have to wait the 68 days and 24 hours, 18 minutes, or is there a way to do like a seed style backup?
Seeding is a challenging question. Yeah, so this is something we talk over and over again, and it really depends on the storage provider of your choice, because for Amazon, we do have a workaround using our standalone software. You can seed data using standalone editions, and it's usually even enough to get a trial of that software to push data to the cloud, and basically we can adapt data in the cloud for managed backup. But for other providers, we don't really have other options. Sorry for interrupting.
So we're still uploading it ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay. So in that regard, I'm sure that we could work with your support team to get creative. Like maybe, for example, we have the 1 gig fiber connection at our office, so maybe we can back it up locally from the client site and then upload it from our office or something like that.
This scenario will work pretty soon, because we currently have a bit different structure on the cloud and locally. It's not the structure question. It's a symbols question. So some Windows computers and then TFS partition in particular doesn't support colons, but for example, Linuxes and all cloud providers, they do support it. So we do have different symbols in paths, and this is something we're gonna kind of get rid of. We're gonna fix it really soon. So we're gonna have the unified approach how we store data locally and in the cloud. And I think it's about 1 or 2 months. It will work the same way, and you'll be able to use another site with a faster connection to basically upload the data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I guess for the people that want this to be as simple as possible, that part is still going to be a point of contention. However, there are still plenty of other great reasons to consider you guys and do a trial and check out the software. I believe you have a 30-day trial on your product, right?
15.
15.
Yeah, but we can extend, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. They're nice guys. They'll do that for you.
Yeah, and if you want to get started and check it out on the trial for the managed backup, This is actually our homepage right here. And you just click free sign up, and you'll fill out a form. Someone will contact you, and you can get started and check out, kind of all the stuff that we showed you today.
Yeah.
Cool. What's your failure rate?
What do you mean failure?
Have you had clients with failed recoveries where on their end it seemed like they did everything right? They wrote down their encryption password and everything else. Come on, tell us a horror story. I know you've got one.
Well, I don't know. The latest I've heard, some customers, they forgot their encryption passwords. I'm not sure if it's a failure, but it happens. Well, sometimes. In terms of if we do backup, and in most cases, if the engine is not working for the restore, due to some reason, it's an emergency, and we involve our development team to kind of fix such problems. Lately, we don't have many. We don't have, I think, even any. I don't remember the last 2-3 months of any such issues. We don't have any issues with virtual machines. Operating systems running in virtual environments. With some physical boxes, we do have issues sometimes. It's not often, but it's more, it's depending on the physical, for example, disk errors. And sometimes it's, one sector can be, read, and it can be backed up, and it's failing.
Okay. And someone asked if you are like, I'm not going to say the brand, okay? They asked if you're like someone else, where you'll provide false positives for a successful restore. If it's successful restore, is it a false positive? I wonder if you mean
we don't really
or failed restore.
We don't really conduct restorations on customers' behalf, because when you back up to the cloud, your internet connection is a bottleneck, obviously, and we try not to consume your bandwidth without your consent. And for that, we don't really, we tell everyone that having test restorations as a part of your backup routine is a must, but some customers, they don't really do that.
Okay. Okay. He was referring to the fact that other backup companies, they'll do a full image-based backup, and then they'd like boot up the backup and do a screenshot, but you don't have a BDR type solution, do you?
No, and there are vendors that will spin up an image, verify that it's that the VM runs, and then spin it back down. We're not at that advanced stage yet. In our image based, it can be automated, but it's not necessarily something that is an option within the software.
Well, but I remember we already had such feature requests, so I think we're gonna just add a couple of votes to that feature, and sooner or we're probably gonna have it.
Yeah, and there's even a chance. I mentioned earlier from a restore perspective, we have restore to EC2. So if you're doing image level backups up to Amazon or to Azure, you can then spin those up as an EC2 or Azure VM. Directly from within the cloud without having to because the data is already there. You can just basically spin it up as a VM on one of those clouds. So, we have kind of the mechanisms to do it. We just haven't done the automation part to have it done automatically.
Well, hopefully that is something that you will be able to get done, maybe in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
I'll give you some rope, right? So let's talk about where the data is stored. is probably the biggest concern when it comes to compliance type stuff, right?
Mhm.
So, because there's the new one that the UK or Europe has, a GDPR.
GDPR, yeah.
So, what about like the CloudBerry portal? The portal that I log into in order to manage those backups remotely. Just for the sheer fact of being able to, because I can look at a list of files, right?
That's correct.
Yes.
Now I might not. Can I restore a file to my computer?
Using the portal,
Yes.
well, you'll have to deploy a backup agent, authenticate it using your user's credentials, pick the right computer name or prefix, as we call it. And in this case, yeah, on the machine, you will be able to restore that. But from the console directly, no, there is another portal, self-service portal, in order to provide customers to download their data from the storage.
Okay. And that also means there's probably no like iPhone app then.
No.
Okay. So this is not something that you should use to replace like Dropbox, guys. Okay. This is your backup software.
And you shouldn't use Dropbox as a target for your backups.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, you should use Box, right?
Yeah, well, Box is something we stopped development, I don't know, a year and a half ago. And it was like Dropbox product, but it was Dropbox with your cloud storage. So you pick where to store actual data. And you can sync data between your computers.
So two real quick, easy questions.
Mm-hmm.
The licenses are typically sold 1 year. You're letting us pay monthly. Does that mean we're in a 1-year contract for each license?
No.
So we
as far as the deal's concerned,
so you're letting us pay monthly.
yes.
So if I sign up and then 4 months later that client fires me, can I just deprovision that license and stop paying for it?
The licenses renew every month. They will the subscription will charge your credit card every month. So if you just cancel the subscription if you need.
So I could cancel a license even though it's only been a few months into the 12.
Yeah. So in terms of licensing, well, monthly licensing, it's not a we don't tie the customer to our software. There are no contracts, so it's always pay as you go. You're lucky. You're on monthly. You don't need the license. You can pay for well, smaller number of licenses, or you can cancel it all.
And then the monthly is going to be a permanent thing. That's not just for the first year, right? The
That's
monthly
correct.
payment option.
As far as I know, yes.
Okay.
But the $500, that credit is for the 1 year. So if you use that to get 20 file backup licenses, you won't have to pay anything for the first year, but then the second year you'll have to start paying. You have to start paying for it. If that makes sense.
And Ian, I believe the answer is yes to, and I can add monthly licenses after the first year as well. So
well, on the first month, you can, for example, have 10 licenses. On the second month, you need 12 licenses, and you'll be growing your number, and the charge for every month will grow accordingly.
So until further notice is what it more or less sounds like on the monthly thing. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's a little concerning, guys. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Well, we don't try to provide something we don't want. So if we tell that yes, this is something we provide you guys, this is something we provide. So
okay.
The condition's not going to change.
Okay, I appreciate that. So no contracts. 2-factor authentication?
For the console, yes. For the backup agents, no.
That's okay. Does your backup also do like versioning?
Of course,
Okay.
this is a really important, one of the most important things. To
Okay.
keep different versions of the data.
And I imagine we could set it up if we wanted to keep every single version for the last 7 years. You don't care. It's my dime that I'm paying for the storage. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that, that's the other thing too on the storage is with Amazon, and soon someday with Azure as well, we actually can do automated tiering of data from S3 to Nearline to Glacier.
S3 infrequent access,
Yeah,
and the Glacier, that's possible.
Yeah, so
and it can save you some dollars.
Yeah, it can save you money, and it also, because it's done automatically, it's not like something you have to go in and manage it yourself over time. It'll automatically move the data to those lower price tiers as time goes on.
That's very awesome.
And we're the plan is to implement it for Azure as well. Once the APIs are available, and we can update the software to do that. But the plan is to support for Azure, the automated portion.
And let's see here. I have to turn on my daughter's phone. So for those of you with kids who like to push all the buttons, I got this app here. It's called Our Pact, and I can control literally her iPhone. I can remove all the apps. All she can do is text me and say, "Dad, can you please turn on my phone?" No, you're grounded. Do you guys integrate with PagerDuty?
No. Well, in fact, we never had any requests. So probably, if it's highly demanded, we're gonna consider.
I imagine that you guys probably just do like the email alerts.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
And then I saw you integrate with Autotask and ConnectWise. So I also assume that you can use their API to create a ticket for a customer, and you could probably even assign the piece of hardware to the ticket, assuming everything's in the system.
Yeah, so we can create system in we can create a ticket in ConnectWise for a particular customer, just to kind of notify that there is an issue with the backup that you need to take care.
So John asked, can a failover virtual machine be running at the same time as a restore on the same machine? So let's say we start running a virtual machine in of the server that may have crashed. So we restored it. It's up and running as a temporary VM.
Okay.
He wants to know if that can be running at the same time as a restore on the original machine. I'm going to assume the answer is yes.
Yeah. Well, sometimes in some cases, when one of your backup agents was backing up to the cloud storage, since we have a local metadatabase, because we don't need to list everything that's in the cloud, just in order to speed up the process and not to make you pay for some additional requests or thousands of requests. This is why we have our local database. And sometimes when you run restore from, for example, from restored machine or from the machine that is not backing up for some time, and cloud content has changed, you will need to rebuild the database, make it up to date. So we call it the database we call repository, and in order to make it up to date, you need just to sync repository. This is a kind of procedure that will make your backup agents up to date with the actual cloud content. So in this case, yes, it can be run at the same time. And,
but I think too, I know sometimes from a backup vendor perspective, some vendors allow you to run from the backup. So you could run the VM from the backup file itself, in which case you can't do a restore because the backup file itself is locked. Whereas if we do the restore, it's essentially restoring it as a VM, and then you can restore it back. Then that backup file is unlocked once it's running, and then you can then restore it somewhere else at the same, at the same time. You just don't want to have them both turned on at the same time.
And I'm just gonna keep it 100. It's probably not going to be as seamless of a solution as some of the BDR providers out there, but it can be done.
Yes.
Yeah.
You'll have to do a little more work, but all that money you're saving, you can justify putting a couple of hours into doing that work yourself, and you're probably going to feel a lot better about everything, knowing that, all right, I actually have my hands in this. I know I'm not waiting for some magical box to do it for me. You know, some people like that hands-on approach. Me, I like the magical box. But, so that's why I said earlier, you know, hopefully you guys get there to where, you know, you can have a magical box of your own, because I really like what you guys have going here. I think this is good. I think this is great.
And I mentioned at the beginning too that we have a number of utilities. So, you know, if you go to the website, you know, if you do anything with, you know, with managing cloud, we've got CloudBerry Explorer, CloudBerry Drive, and more recently CloudBerry Remote Assistant, which it's freeware. It's free for now, but it's just essentially a real easy remote control, you know, remote assistant between two PCs across the internet. So, and we've had a lot of downloads for that. But a lot of people know us for some of our, like CloudBerry Explorer and CloudBerry Drive, because they've used them because, hey, they need to manage, you know, cloud storage, and they want to do it in an interface that's a lot easier, more familiar than, you know, for working with, and that's what it gives you.
Awesome. 2 more questions. Holy cow. You don't want to save on backup. That's not really a question. Why did you choose the name CloudBerry?
It's a good question. Recently, we raised it with the founders. Well, first, it's all about cloud, and the second one, I'm not sure that everyone's aware that CloudBerry is an actual berry, and it's grown. Yeah, CloudBerry is a berry which grows in Canada and Northern Europe, and basically it runs. Sorry, it grows here in Estonia. It grows in Sweden, in Finland. So it's an actual berry, and it's pretty rare.
But at some of the local markets in those Nordic countries, you can get CloudBerry jam. So
or liqueur.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah. Well, you can Google it.
No, you're not.
Well, we are serious.
CloudBerry.
There you go.
Yeah.
It looks like, I'm not sure if it looks like a cloud or like Einstein's brain. So that is a CloudBerry, guys.
Yeah, that looks like our logo.
It really does. It really does. Well, I thank the both of you for doing this today. And again, I thank you for the awesome deal that you guys gave us. Do you have any, I don't know, last words of advice, wisdom?
If you have anything to tell us, if you have any questions, and if you have any concerns, everything, you can shoot us an email, and we'll be happy to help.
Yeah, or post in the forum.
Forum is another,
especially for product feedback and those types of things. So
yeah,
real quick, support. How do we get support?
Email, ticket system, phones, screen shares sometimes.
Okay.
It depends on the problem, of course.
Yeah. And what's nice is within the client software, in both the standalone and even on the web, there's if you go to tools, you'll see a diagnostics. You click that, and then you click the option to send the logs automatically to support. So you just click that, you put some information, and the logs and everything will automatically get shipped off to support. That's support likes it that way because now they don't have to ask for the logs. They get it as part of the ticket when you send it.
You do that basically to create a ticket too, then,
Yes.
right?
That's you type in the description, the error, the issue you're having, say send the logs, and when you click done, it sends it, creates a ticket, you get an email notification, and support has the logs that they can start piling through to see what's really going on.
And what are your support hours?
It's a good question.
Here and there.
Something from 6 a.m. Eastern, something to, let me recall.
It's roughly 24 hours. It's
almost 24. We're not covering like 3 hours.
Yeah, it's like
okay.
20. Yeah.
And where's support located?
Eastern Europe, a couple of engineers somewhere in Russia, I'm not sure, and one engineer in the US.
Okay.
Well,
so we might get somebody where English isn't their native or their primary language, but
that's possible.
Most part, through email and chat, we should be okay, I imagine.
Yeah.
Do you have an SLA for support?
We do have. I don't have it right in front of my eyes, so yeah. There is a SLA described in the license agreement. When you sign up, you just can click the link and you will see the hours and SLA.
And if I recall correctly, the SLA was based on the number of licenses you have.
Well,
so like 10 licenses, you get like a 4-hour SLA, and 30 is 1 hour or something like that.
Yeah. Well, if you have thousands of licenses, of course you have a dedicated, not the dedicated line, but you have a personal contact you can reach out for regular cases, and for emergency, of course, you will have to reach out to support, and they will treat it accordingly.
Awesome. No more questions.
Okay.
We've answered over 50 questions. So
Great.
This was awesome. Thank you guys so much. Anton, go to bed, man. It's late there.
Thank you.
All
It's
right.
not
Good one. Thanks for doing this.
Oh,
Thank
hey,
you.
Steve, thanks for providing this platform. We really appreciate it, and happy for the chance to talk to your folks here. So thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.